So picture this. You're an expat, right? And you've just moved to Japan.
Okay, I can picture that.
And for months, you've been kind of bracing your waistline for the inevitable.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know what's waiting for you. It's the food.
The amazing food.
Exactly. You're thinking about the endless bowls of rich pork broth ramen, the perfectly fried tempura, and like those incredible French-inspired bakeries on practically every corner.
They really are everywhere.
Yeah. So you were fully expecting to just, pack on the pounds.
Naturally.
But then a few months in, you experience something completely different.
A totally different reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the middle of a notoriously humid Japanese summer.
Ugh, the humidity there is brutal.
Right. And you're doing your daily commute, just navigating these massive, sprawling train stations.
Right.
And you have this visceral sensation. You feel like the weight is literally just leaking from your pores. Yeah.
It's a beautifully vivid description. And it actually captures a phenomenon that is so incredibly common among foreigners moving to the country.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They actually call it the Nagano weight loss program.
The Nagano weight loss program. That's hilarious.
Right.
But it's true. I mean, without actively trying, without changing their caloric intent, or, without going on some restrictive diet, they just find themselves shedding 15 kilograms. Which
is a massive amount of weight.
It is. That's over 30 pounds just melting away in a matter of months.
It's incredible.
And it raises this massive, glaring question that we are going to explore for you, the listener, today in this deep dive.
The big question.
Exactly. How exactly does Japan maintain a roughly 6% adult obesity rate, while countries like the U.S. are sitting at over 40%?
It's a staggering difference. And, the most fascinating part of the answer is actually what they aren't doing.
What they aren't doing.
Yeah. When you dig into the public health data, the architectural analyses, and the dietary research we've pulled together for this deep dive, you start to realize something. The Japanese population doesn't stay naturally slim through, superhuman willpower.
Right.
They aren't relying on strict fad dieting, and there isn't some obsessive, punishing gym culture driving these numbers.
Okay, so it's not about forcing yourself to go to the gym at 5 a.m.
Not at all.
So instead, it comes down to these two concepts we're going to be exploring today.
Right.
Accidental health and default design.
Yes. Two incredibly important concepts.
We're talking about an entire society architected from the ground up to make staying healthy the absolute path of least resistance.
Exactly. I mean, we are so used to thinking of health as an active, conscious struggle.
Right, like a daily grind.
Exactly. We think of it as a battle of individual discipline, but what we are looking at today is a system where the environment itself does the heavy lifting for human behavior.
It's fascinating. And to really understand how this works, we actually have to start by looking completely away from the dinner plate.
Right, we have to look elsewhere.
Yeah, we need to look down at the pavement. Because it seems like the foundational layer of this default design is just how people physically move through their world.
It really is the ultimate baseline.
Yeah.
Urban planners and public health researchers often refer to it as a pedestrian mandate.
A pedestrian mandate, I like that.
And the data gap between Japan and Western car-centric nations is just staggering.
Okay, lay the numbers on us.
Well, if you look at the raw numbers, the average Japanese adult walks about 7,421 steps a day.
Okay, and just for context, an American adult walks roughly 5,000 to 5,900 steps a day, depending on which study you actually look at.
Right, so we are talking about a very consistent baseline gap of roughly 2,000 steps every single day.
But, 2,000 steps doesn't really sound like a massive marathon, though.
It doesn't, no.
So does that really make a dent in a national obesity rate?
It really doesn't sound like much until you do the physiological math and compound it over time.
Okay, let's hear the math.
So that 2,000 step daily gap burns an extra 100 calories a day.
Just 100.
Right. Now, in isolation, 100 calories is nothing. It's an apple.
Or like a handful of crackers.
Exactly. But when you look at it over the course of a year, that equates to 36,500 calories.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Physiologically, a pound of body fat stores roughly 3,500 calories of energy.
Okay.
So when you divide that out, those extra daily steps equate to roughly 10.4 pounds of fat burned every single year.
Wait, really?
Yes, simply by existing and moving through the urban environment.
10 pounds a year, just from getting from point A to point B. That is incredible.
It makes a huge difference over a lifetime.
But here's the thing I always wonder about when I hear statistics like this.
What's that?
Why do they walk so much more? I mean, is it a cultural mindset?
That's a common assumption.
Right. Does everyone in Japan just have this deep, passionate love for taking a long, contemplative stroll?
Not at all. And this is where the concept of default design really shines.
Okay.
It's not about a love for walking. It's about structural friction.
Structural friction.
Yes. The environment actually dictates the behavior. In a lot of Western suburbs, driving is just the path of least resistance.
Right. You have a driveway, wide roads, and free parking everywhere.
Exactly. But in Japan, the path of least resistance is entirely different because the cost and hassle of car ownership are extraordinarily high.
So if I move to Tokyo and I want to buy a car, what does that process actually look like?
Well, before you are even legally allowed to purchase a car, you have to prove to the local police that you have a place to put it.
Are you serious?
Yes, you have to obtain a mandatory parking space certificate. It's known as a shako shomisho.
Wow.
The police will literally come to your house to measure your parking space.
They come to your house?
They do.
Yeah.
Just to ensure the specific car you want to buy will fit without protruding into the street.
Wait, you can't just park on the street like in almost every American city.
No, absolutely not. Street parking is virtually non-existent and highly illegal in most urban areas.
That's wild.
Yeah, the streets are often incredibly narrow and sometimes without distinct sidewalks, so you have to rent a private parking space.
And I'm guessing that's not cheap.
Not at all. In cities like Tokyo or Osaka, renting a tiny patch of concrete can easily cost you $300 a month, sometimes much more.
Just to have the right to own the car.
Precisely. And then you add in the incredibly high gas prices,
Right.
the expensive highway tolls, and the mandatory biannual vehicle inspections, which, by the way, are incredibly rigorous and costly.
So driving basically becomes a luxury, not a necessity.
Exactly. And when driving becomes that difficult, human behavior flows like water down the easiest path.
And the easiest path is?
The default mode of transit becomes the incredibly efficient railway system.
Okay, so the city's designed to essentially force you out of a car and onto a train.
Yes.
I really like this analogy of human behavior flowing like water.
It's very fitting.
Right. If the river of cars is dammed up by expenses and regulations, the water naturally flows toward the trains. And by flowing toward the trains, you are manufacturing that 2,000-step gap. It's almost like the city itself acts as an involuntary gymnasium.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it, an
Yeah.
involuntary gymnasium.
Yeah.
And the science actually backs up just how effective this kind of commuting is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Japanese researchers have studied this deeply, and they developed a formalized concept based on it called interval walking training, or IWT.
Interval walking training. That sounds a lot more intense than just a leisurely stroll to the train station.
It is. IWT involves alternating between fast and slow walking.
Okay, so how does that look in practice?
Well, the specific protocol they developed is 3 minutes of high-intensity fast walking,
Okay.
followed by 3 minutes of slow, low-intensity recovery walking. And the clinical trials on this are remarkable. It is a scientifically proven cardiovascular workout that lowers blood pressure, improves blood sugar regulation, and significantly boosts VO2 max.
Let's pause there for a second.
Sure.
VO2 max. For listeners who might not be marathon runners or fitness nerds, that's basically a measurement of how efficiently your body can utilize oxygen during intense exercise.
That's a great summary, yes.
It's like the ultimate metric for cardiovascular longevity.
Exactly. A high VO2 max is strongly correlated with a longer health span and a lower risk of all-cause mortality.
That's amazing.
Now, here is where the involuntary gymnasium concept really connects. Think about what a standard Japanese commute actually looks like.
Okay, let's use Shinjuku Station in Tokyo.
Perfect example.
I've seen videos of that place. It's like a massive underground labyrinth.
It really is.
Millions of people just flowing through it every single day.
Right, so imagine you are running late.
Oh, stressful.
You are rushing through the crowds in Shinjuku to catch the Marunouchi line. You are power walking, weaving around people, hauling your briefcase.
Yeah.
Your heart rate is spiking. That is your high-intensity interval.
So that's your 3 minutes of intense effort.
Exactly. Then you finally catch the train, you stand or sit, and your heart rate comes down.
Right.
Then you get off at your stop and walk at a normal, steady, leisurely pace for a few blocks to your office building.
And that's the recovery phase.
That is your low-intensity recovery interval.
That is wild.
It happens completely naturally.
You are doing a scientifically validated VO2 max boosting workout twice a day, 5 days a week, And you aren't even wearing gym clothes.
Exactly.
You're just trying to get...
Picture of these transit hubs pushes you even further.
How so?
There is a fascinating layer of behavioral psychology built into the environment. It's known as nudge architecture.
Oh, I read about this in the architectural analyses we reviewed.
Yes.
They have these stairs in the subways that are covered in stickers, right?
They do.
And each sticker gives you immediate micro-level feedback on what your body is actually doing.
Yes. As you walk up the stairs, each individual step is labeled with the exact number of kilocalories you've burned by taking that step.
Wow.
It's usually something tiny, like 0.1 calories per step.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but I can imagine how seeing that number tick up with every single step kind of gamifies the experience.
It really does.
But some of these expats on the Reddit threads we looked at referred to these as the death stairs.
Ah, yes, the death stare.
They were talking about getting off a subway line that is buried deep underground, and suddenly they're forced to climb the equivalent of 5 stories just to see daylight.
It's a real physical challenge, and that physical infrastructure serves as a powerful, subtle discouragement for able-bodied individuals to use escalators or to reserve them for people who truly need them. The immediate, tangible feedback of the calorie stickers nudges the general population toward the stairs.
But I have to stop and push back here for a second.
Please do.
Climbing 5 stories of death stairs every day and walking 3 miles just to get around. Well, I mean, that sounds fantastic if you're a healthy 25-year-old.
Sure.
But isn't this an absolute nightmare for the elderly or for anyone with mobility issues?
That's a very fair point.
I mean, this level of structural friction seems like it would be incredibly punishing for people with disabilities.
That is a very astute observation, and it's a critical nuance that public health experts actually grapple with constantly.
Yeah.
Yes. The architectural reality we've been discussing does present very real, very significant accessibility challenges.
Right.
The exact same infrastructure that forces the able-bodied population to stay incredibly slim and fit can simultaneously create a highly hostile environment for those who use wheelchairs or rely on mobility aids.
Because if the elevators are hidden or scarce, and you have to walk 10 minutes to find one, you are actively being excluded from the flow of the city.
Precisely. It is a built environment that historically demanded a baseline of physical capability. Now, to be fair, Japan has made massive strides in recent decades regarding accessibility laws.
Like retrofitting the older station.
Exactly. Retrofitting stations with elevators and accessible facilities, especially leading up to the Tokyo Olympics.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the core truth remains. The baseline environment requires significant physical exertion.
Right.
The trade-off for a remarkably fit population is a higher barrier to entry for navigating the public space.
It's the harsh reality of that kind of urban design.
It is.
Okay, so we have this picture of the involuntary gymnasium. You are constantly moving, you are sweating through the humid summer, you are burning an extra 10 pounds of fat a year, and your VO2 max is looking great.
A very active baseline.
But here is the next logical step, and this is where it gets really interesting. What happens when all of that movement inevitably makes you hungry?
Ah, yes, the food environment.
Right, you're on the go, you've just climbed 5 stories of stairs, and your stomach is rumbling.
Naturally.
In a Western car-centric city, the absolute easiest option, the path of least resistance, is to pull your car into a drive-thru and order a massive burger, a huge side of fries, and a liter of soda.
That's the default.
So what is the equivalent default in Japan?
The default is the konbini, the Japanese convenience store.
Okay, the konbini.
Yes, we were talking about major brands like 7-Eleven, Lawson, and Family Mart.
Right.
But before we even discuss what's inside them, you have to completely erase the Western concept of a convenience store from your mind.
I totally understand what you mean. In the U.S., a convenience store is usually synonymous with a gas station.
Yes, exactly.
It's what public health advocates often call a food desert.
Right.
It's a place where you are surrounded by highly processed, shelf-stable snacks, neon-colored sugar water, and maybe a rotating hot dog that has been under a heat lamp since yesterday afternoon.
Exactly. The Western convenience store model is based on extreme shelf life.
They want stuff that lasts forever.
Yes. They want products that can sit in a warehouse for 6 months, sit on a shelf for another 3 months, and still be sold.
Gross.
But the Japanese konbini operates on a totally different nutritional and logistical paradigm.
Our sources actually describe them as nutritional hubs.
They really are.
And the secret behind this, the actual mechanism that makes it possible, is their point of sale, or POS, systems.
The logistics are incredible.
I found this part of the research fascinating because it's not just about the food. It's about big data.
It is incredibly sophisticated logistics. When you buy something at a konbini, the clerk isn't just scanning a barcode.
They aren't.
No, they are actually inputting data about your approximate age and gender into the register.
Wow, just manually assessing it.
Yes. The system tracks these consumer habits in real time, and it cross-references them with the time of day, the neighborhood, and even the weather forecast.
Wait, the weather?
Yes, the weather.
That is insane.
I know. So if a cold front is coming in, the POS system predicts a spike in the demand for hot foods.
Like hot soups.
Like oden or steamed buns. And it automatically adjusts the orders for that specific store.
That is just next level.
And because Japanese consumers have an incredibly high standard and demand fresh, healthy, high-quality food, the stores cannot rely on long shelf lives.
All right, they can't sell stale food.
Exactly. So they are forced to restock fresh, time-stamped food multiple times a single day.
Multiple times a day in a city the size of Tokyo.
Yes.
With thousands of these stores, the logistics of that are mind-boggling.
It's an absolute masterclass in supply chain management.
How do they even do it?
They use specialized fleets of delivery trucks that have multiple temperature zones within the same vehicle.
Oh, that makes sense.
One section for frozen goods, one for chilled items like sandwiches, and one for ambient items like rice balls.
Wow.
And the rules are ruthless. If a fresh food item passes its precise, printed sell-by time, even by a few minutes, it is pulled from the shelf immediately.
So this massive data network and this relentless logistical chain guarantee a level of freshness that fundamentally changes what you can buy.
Absolutely.
It elevates the konbini from a place of desperation to a genuinely viable option for a healthy daily meal.
Precisely. You don't have to sacrifice health for convenience.
Okay, let's make this tangible for the listener.
Sure.
Let's pretend we walk into a Lawson in Tokyo right now.
Okay.
If I'm trying to stick to this accidental health lifestyle, what are the dietitian-approved healthy grabs? Like, what does a healthy fast food meal look like here?
Well, the options are vast. According to the Tokyo-based registered dietitians cited in our public health sources, you could walk straight to the chilled section and grab a pack of perfectly grilled mackerel.
Grilled mackerel at a convenience store.
Or lightly salted salmon. It's packed with omega-3 fatty acids and protein.
That sounds delicious.
Or you could grab salt-flavored yakitori, which are freshly grilled chicken skewers.
And what about that hot food you mentioned earlier, oden?
Yes, oden is a staple, especially in the winter. It's a brilliant, savory dashi broth that simmers various ingredients.
Like what kind of ingredients?
And you pick exactly what you want. You can choose a large piece of daikon radish or a block of konnyaku.
Konnyaku, what is that?
It's a jelly made from a yam-like plant.
Okay, interesting.
These items are incredibly filling, but hold practically 0 calories. You can have a massive bowl of oden for literally 15 to 50 calories.
That's amazing. What else?
You can buy perfectly cooked hard-boiled eggs.
Just normal eggs.
But here is the genius part. They are boiled in salt water under pressure, so the salt permeates the shell.
No way.
Yes. When you peel it, it's already perfectly seasoned. No little packets of salt required.
That is so smart.
And of course, the absolute cornerstone of konbini food is the onigiri.
The rice balls.
Right. They are triangles of compressed rice, usually wrapped in crisp seaweed, and filled with things like grilled salmon, pickled plum, or tuna.
Yeah.
They sit right around 170 to 200 calories each. They provide complex carbohydrates, protein, and a very satisfying chew.
Okay, so you have grilled fish, vegetables in broth, seasoned eggs, and rice balls. It sounds incredible.
This is a very solid meal.
But I want to make sure we aren't painting this as some flawless health utopia.
Oh, of course not.
There have to be diet traps in the konbini, right? You can't just stumble in there blindfolded, eat whatever your hand touches, and expect to lose 30 pounds.
Oh, absolutely not. The dietitians explicitly warn against several items that can easily derail a diet.
Like what?
Well, you have to understand that the konbini also caters to people who want sheer caloric density.
Right.
For instance, you might see what looks like a light, fluffy sandwich with the crust cut off, but inside, it could be loaded with heavy Japanese mayonnaise and pack over 400 calories.
Right. Or those little pasta salads that look healthy because they have like a single cherry tomato on top.
Exactly.
But the pasta is swimming in a creamy, high-fat dressing.
Exactly. And you can buy incredible pastries, ice creams, and highly processed snacks, too.
So it's not all health food.
No. The crucial takeaway isn't that unhealthy food doesn't exist. It's that the healthy choices are just as accessible, just as cheap, and arguably just as tasty as the unhealthy ones.
The friction to eating well is basically removed.
Yes.
And speaking of removing friction, this brings me to one of the most visible aspects of the Japanese convenience landscape.
The vending machines.
Yes, the jahanki, the vending machines. When I looked at the urban design data, I honestly couldn't believe the numbers.
It's a staggering figure.
There are roughly 5 million vending machines blanketing Japan.
It is the highest density of vending machines per capita in the world. You can barely walk a single city block or even hike a remote mountain trail without encountering one.
Now, if I think about a vending machine in a Western office building or a train station, the default visual is a glass front displaying rows of artificial colors.
Neon drinks and snacks.
Massive amounts of sodium in bags of chips and liquid sugar in plastic bottles.
The American vending machine is, by and large, a calorie trap.
Yeah.
It is essentially designed to sell cheap carbohydrates and sugar to a captive audience.
Right.
But the Japanese juhanki serves a completely different primary function. It is a hydration hub.
A hydration hub. I love that phrasing. So what's actually inside them?
The default offerings in these machines are vastly different.
Okay.
When you look at the rows of buttons, the majority of the real estate is dedicated to zero-calorie unsweetened beverages.
Really?
Yes. You will see rows of green tea, roasted barley tea known as mugicha, oolong tea, and black coffee.
With no sugar added.
None. Just pure brewed tea and coffee.
Wow.
And here is the brilliant logistical engineering. These machines dispense these drinks both hot and cold simultaneously, depending on the season.
Both hot and cold from the same machine.
Yes. They have a blue label under the button for a chilled drink and a red label for a steaming hot drink in a heat-safe bottle.
So imagine the scenario again. You've walked your 2,000 extra steps. You're waiting on a train platform. You are physically thirsty.
Right.
Instead of the path of least resistance being a 300-calorie soda, you put in a coin and grab a cold, refreshing, zero-calorie green tea.
It's the easiest option.
The environment has nudged you into a healthy decision without you even having to exert willpower.
Exactly.
But wait, I have to ask a challenging question here.
Oh, for it.
Japan also has amazing, hyper-palatable, highly caloric food.
They absolutely do.
We've talked about the ramen.
Yeah.
And what about famichiki?
Oh, famichiki is legendary.
Right, the deeply fried, perfectly seasoned chicken you can buy right at the counter Family Mart.
Yes.
If the food is so good and they clearly have access to fried chicken, pork cutlets, and rich broths, why aren't they gaining weight from that?
That is the essential paradox. And it comes down to a crucial distinction in dietary culture.
What is it?
It is the difference between a sometimes treat and a baseline default.
Explain that.
The sociological and dietary research points out that while a Japanese person might absolutely love going out for a massive, rich bowl of tonkotsu ramen with extra pork fat,
True.
or grabbing a piece of famichiki after a long week,
Right.
it is not their baseline everyday diet. That is an indulgence.
Ah, I see.
Their default daily existence consists of the incidental walking, the zero-calorie teas, and the balanced, portion-controlled meals like the grilled fish and rice we discussed.
Okay, that makes complete sense. The baseline absorbs the impact of the occasional treat.
In contrast, in many Western countries, the high-calorie, ultra-processed, highly palatable food is the baseline default for many people.
Wow, yeah.
The fast food burger isn't a rare treat, it's Tuesday's lunch.
Exactly. So the Japanese can enjoy the fried chicken because their societal baseline is so robustly healthy.
Precise.
Okay, but let's zoom in on that treat for a second. Let's say you do decide to buy a sugary snack at a konbini.
Okay.
Let's say you buy some cookies or crackers. Here is where the design of the environment gets almost microscopic.
The packaging.
Yes. The way a consumer actually eats that snack is physically regulated by the packaging itself.
This is perhaps one of the most subtle yet psychologically profound aspects of Japanese default design.
I agree.
We're stepping into the realm of what behavioral economists call interruptive eating.
Interruptive eating. Okay, so think about buying a box of cookies in a Western supermarket.
Okay, picturing it.
You tear open the cardboard box, you rip open a plastic sleeve, and you are presented with a trough of 24 cookies.
Literal trough, yeah.
And what do? You sit on the couch, watch a screen, and mindlessly eat cookie after cookie. There is zero friction between bites.
And that lack of friction is entirely intentional on the part of the manufacturer.
Of course it is.
They want you to consume as much as possible, as quickly as possible. But in Japan, the packaging philosophy is inverted.
How so?
If you buy a box of premium cookies or rice crackers, almost all of them will be individually wrapped within the larger box.
Every single cookie has its own little plastic wrapper.
Yes. And that individual wrapping serves a deep biological and psychological function.
Okay.
Every single time you want another cookie, you have to physically stop what you were doing.
You have to pause.
You have to pick it up, tear open a new plastic wrapper, extract the food, and dispose of the trash.
Right.
That physical action, however brief, creates a cognitive pause.
It breaks the loop.
Exactly. It intentionally severs the mindless hand-to-mouth loop.
It's a physical speed bump for your impulses.
That's a great way to put it.
Think about that relatable scenario of sitting on the couch with a giant family-sized bag of potato chips.
We've all been there.
You're watching a movie, your hand goes into the bag, and suddenly your fingers scrape the foil bottom.
And you're like, where did they all go?
Right. You didn't even realize you ate the whole thing. Your brain completely checked out.
Yes.
Japanese packaging engineers, that bottom of the bag realization after every single bite.
And by creating that cognitive pause, it buys your brain time to register fullness.
Right.
And this ties directly into the larger concept of portion distortion, which is a massive driver of the obesity epidemic in the West.
Let's look at liquids as an example of that.
Okay.
If you go to a typical fast food restaurant in Japan and order a large drink,
Yep.
you are going to get a cup that holds about 400 to 500 milliliters.
Which, if I'm doing the mental conversion right, is what we would call a small or maybe a medium in the U.S.
Precisely.
Yeah.
In the United States, a large fountain drink can easily reach 1,000 milliliters.
A full liter of liquid.
That is a massive influx of sugar, syrup, and empty calories.
It's huge.
But the Japanese consumer is simply never exposed to that volume as a normal or default option. The environment scales down the norm.
And the research really backs up why relying on packaging and structural cues is so much more effective than relying on education or willpower, right?
Absolutely. I am looking at the findings from the study conducted by the University of Leeds that was mentioned in our public health sources.
The Leeds study is incredibly revealing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it somewhat indicts the way Western public health has tried to solve obesity.
Oh, wow. How so?
Well, for decades, the strategy in the US and Europe has been education.
Like putting nutritional labels on the back of the box.
Exactly. Tell people what a serving size is and trust them to be disciplined.
Right. Serving size, 3 crackers.
Exactly.
Which no one has ever followed in the history of humanity.
Never. And the Leeds researchers proved exactly that.
That's hilarious.
They found that consumers actively and consistently ignore the serving size text printed on the back of the box.
I mean, that makes total sense. Reading a label requires cognitive effort.
And willpower.
Right, which are easily depleted resources.
Exactly. However, the study found that consumers subconsciously obey structural cues.
Structural cues, meaning the physical design of the container itself.
Yes. Pre-portioned segments within a tray, individual wrappers, and resealable packaging actively guide the consumer to stop eating.
Wow.
The physical boundary of the wrapper is infinitely more effective at changing behavior than a paragraph of text on the back of the box.
So we spend all this time trying to squint at tiny labels, trying to calculate macros in our head, and using our sheer willpower to stop at 3 crackers.
Right.
When the physical trough we're eating out of is actively working against us.
In Japan, the packaging is on your side.
It creates an architecture of satiety.
Yes, an architecture of satiety. The environment, right down to the plastic film around a rice cracker, is doing the heavy lifting of portion control, so the individual doesn't have to rely on sheer willpower.
I just love that phrase, an architecture of satiety. Because everything we've talked about so far, the walkable cities, the vending machines, the speed bumps of packaging, they are all physical structures.
Yes, the hardware of the society.
But to truly understand Japan's low obesity rate, we need to understand the cultural software that runs on this hardware.
The mindset behind it.
Right. This architecture of satiety actually mirrors a much deeper, centuries-old philosophy of how meals are structured at the dinner table.
It does.
So let's transition from the street into the dining room, we need to talk about the concept of Hara Hachibu.
Hara Hachibu is arguably the foundational concept of Japanese dietary mindfulness.
Okay, where does it come from?
It is a teaching with Confucian roots, most strongly associated with the people of Okinawa.
Right, Okinawa.
Yes, a region famous for being a blue zone with extraordinary longevity and incredibly low rates of heart disease.
So what does it mean?
The phrase translates simply but powerfully to eat until you are 80% full.
Eat until you are 80% full.
That's it.
Now, that sounds lovely on a bumper sticker or a wellness blog, but I really have to push back on this, practically speaking.
Okay, let's hear it.
How on earth do you know what 80% feels like? Does a little bell go off in your stomach?
It's a fair question.
Because for most people, in a modern, fast-paced world, we only recognize two binary states of being. I am absolutely starving, and I ate so much I literally need to unbutton my pants and lie down.
Right.
There is no nuanced middle ground.
It is a very fair skepticism, especially from a Western perspective where fullness is often equated with physical discomfort.
Right, feeling stuffed.
But the secret to Hara Hachibu isn't magic. It comes down to understanding physiological science and the inherent delay in our nervous system.
A delay in the nervous system. What do you mean by that?
When you eat a meal, your stomach physically expands. Embedded in the walls of your stomach are stretch receptors.
Okay.
As they stretch, they send signals through the vagus nerve up to your brain.
Making sense so far.
Simultaneously, your fat cells release a hormone called leptin, which travels through your bloodstream, crosses the blood-brain barrier, and signals to your hypothalamus that you have consumed enough energy.
Okay, so a mechanical signal and a chemical signal.
Yes, but here is the critical flaw in the human design. This signaling process is not instantaneous.
Oh.
It takes approximately 20 minutes for these signals to fully register in the brain.
Wow. So your brain is essentially 20 minutes behind your stomach.
Precisely. If you eat rapidly until your brain finally screams, I am 100% full, you have actually overeaten by a massive margin.
Because you have all that food still waiting to be registered.
Exactly. You have 20 minutes of unaccounted for food sitting in your stomach.
You blew past the stop sign 20 miles ago.
Exactly. By consciously stopping eating when you feel 80% full, which the Okinawan elders and the dietitians in our sources describe not as a feeling of fullness, but simply as the absence of hunger, a lack of heaviness, you allow your biological systems to catch up.
I see.
20 minutes after you put your chopsticks down, that 80% feeling naturally blossoms into a very comfortable, energized 100% satisfaction.
So you completely avoid the sluggish, overstuffed food coma because you accounted for the biological delay.
You've hacked the delay.
That is brilliant. It's essentially biohacking your own nervous system.
It really is.
And the practical advice from the dietary sources suggests a very simple way to implement this. You take a mid-meal pause.
A physical pause.
Right. You literally put your chopsticks down, take a sip of hot green tea, and take a moment to actually assess your cravings.
It's mindful eating built directly into the pacing of the culture.
But it's not just about stopping early, is it? It's also about how the food is presented on the table.
Yes, presentation is key.
Tell me about the concept of ichiju sansai.
Ichiju sansai translates to one soup, three sides.
One soup, three sides.
It is the traditional architectural structure of a standard Japanese meal, and it completely redefines portion control.
How so? Contrast that with a typical Western dinner for me.
Well, think about a classic American dinner. You have one massive, heavy plate.
Right.
In the center is a giant, dense protein, like a 12-ounce steak.
Sounds good to me, but yeah.
Next to it is a massive mound of simple carbohydrates, like mashed potatoes, and maybe a small side of buttery vegetables.
The classic meat and potatoes.
The entire meal is compressed into a huge, calorically dense pile.
Right.
Ichiju sansai operates on compartmentalization. Instead of one massive plate, the meal is separated into many small, beautiful, distinct dishes.
Small dishes.
You have a bowl for rice, a bowl for soup, a small plate for a piece of grilled fish, another small dish for pickled vegetables, and maybe a tiny bowl for simmered root vegetables.
The sources refer to this as eating with your eyes.
Exactly. The psychological impact of this compartmentalization is profound.
How does it work in the brain?
As you sit down to eat, your visual cortex takes in this wide array of dishes. You're experiencing different colors, varied textures, and distinct flavor profiles.
Yeah.
You might take a bite of savory fish, then a palate-cleansing bite of sour pickle, then some neutral rice.
Your brain feels like like it is consuming a vast, abundant bounty of food.
Exactly. But because the actual volume of food in each little dish is quite small, you are achieving maximum sensory satisfaction without a massive caloric bulk.
It's a masterclass in volume versus density.
It truly is.
And the sources point out another crucial physics aspect of the Japanese diet here. They rely heavily on high water content foods.
Yes, that's very important.
Think about the components of ichi zansai. Miso soup is primarily water. Simmered daikon radish is mostly water. Even cooked, short-grained Japanese rice contains significantly more moisture than dry breads or pastas.
So true.
So when you consume these high water content foods, you are physically stretching the stomach, triggering those stretch receptors we just talked about, and creating a profound feeling of physical fullness. But because water has 0 calories, you are achieving that fullness for a fraction of the caloric cost you'd find in dry, calorie-dense Western foods, like bread, cheese, or crackers.
If we connect this back to the bigger picture, it fundamentally changes the entire definition of what a meal is supposed to accomplish.
Also,
In many Western cultures, a meal is deemed complete when the plate is scraped clean and the stomach feels physically tight and stuffed.
right, the clean plate club.
In the Japanese paradigm, the meal is complete when the sensory experience has been satisfied and the underlying hunger has been neutralized.
It's a completely different endpoint.
Completely different.
Okay, so far, we have taken an incredible journey through this society.
We really have.
We've talked about the macro infrastructure of walkable cities and trains. We've talked about the commercial logistics of the konbini.
Right.
We've talked about packaging engineering. And we've talked about the personal dining room philosophy of Hara Hachibu.
It's a very comprehensive system.
But here is where we need to take a step back and look at how a society actually maintains this. Because everything we've discussed, choosing mackerel over mayo, knowing when you are 80% full, requires a baseline of knowledge.
Education is crucial.
How does an entire population intuitively know how to execute this?
They know it because the state does not leave it to chance. The Japanese government doesn't just hope individuals figure it out. They actively engineer this mindset from childhood.
Oh, wow.
And this brings us to the National Food and Nutrition Education Program known as Shokuku.
Shokuku. I was fascinated by this when reading the public health documents.
It's a brilliant program.
Because in the U.S., health education in schools usually consists of like a gym teacher showing a dusty food pyramid poster once a year while the cafeteria serves frozen pizza.
Shokuku is entirely different. It was codified into national law in 2005.
National law.
Yes, making food education an academic requirement on par with math or science.
That's incredible.
From elementary school onward, children are systematically taught how food impacts their bodies, how to understand seasonal ingredients, and how to maintain traditional dietary culture.
And the focal point of this education happens in the school cafeteria, right?
Yes. The Japanese school lunch program, known as Kyushoku, is revolutionary.
Tell me about it.
These lunches are generally free or heavily subsidized by the government. They are not outsourced to massive industrial catering corporations, providing highly processed, freeze-dried food.
So who makes them?
They are typically scratch-made every day inside the school by dedicated nutritionists and cooks.
So there are no frozen rectangular pizzas, no mystery meat chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs.
Absolutely not. They are eating real, whole foods that mirror the Ichiju Sansai structure we just discussed.
Wow.
A typical lunch might be a bowl of rice, a clear soup with tofu, a piece of grilled white fish, and a side of sautéed spinach.
That sounds better than what I eat for lunch.
But more importantly, the educational component is incredibly visual and intuitive.
Right. I want to talk about the visual aid they use because it completely destroys the old static American food pyramid.
Oh, the spinning top?
Yes, it's called the Japanese Food Guide Spinning Top. Let me describe this for you, the listener, because it is brilliant.
It really is a great visual.
Imagine a traditional wooden spinning top, an inverted cone. At the very top, the widest part of the toy, you have grain dishes like rice and noodles.
Yeah,
That's your base energy.
correct. The largest volume.
The next layer down, slightly narrower, is vegetables. Below that, getting even narrower, is meat, fish, and egg dishes. And at the very bottom, the tiny tip of the top, are milk and fruits.
The proportions are visually intuitive, but what is truly brilliant about this guide is the mechanics of the metaphor itself.
Yes, the top is drawn spinning on a central vertical axis. And that core axis represents water and tea.
Because essential hydration is the core of everything.
Yes. Furthermore, to make a traditional top spin, you need a string to whip it.
Right.
In this diagram, the string wrapped around the top represents a moderate controlled amount of sweets and snacks. It acknowledges that treats exist and can be enjoyed, but they are external to the core diet.
It's such a smart way to frame it.
But here is my absolute favorite part of the metaphor. For a spinning top to stay upright and balanced, what does it have to do?
It has to be spinning.
Yes, it has to be spinning. And in this diagram, the spinning motion represents physical exercise.
It beautifully physically symbolizes that dietary balance alone isn't enough to keep you upright.
Health requires constant physical movement.
It is a profound educational tool because it teaches children that health is a dynamic equilibrium, not a static list of rules.
Right.
By the time these children graduate and become adults, they have a deeply ingrained, intuitive understanding of what a balanced meal looks like, how their bodies should feel, and why movement is necessary.
It programs the cultural software.
Exactly.
But the state's involvement doesn't stop when you graduate high school.
No, it doesn't.
And this brings us to one of the most fascinating and, frankly, to a Western mindset, kind of shocking pieces of public health policy I have ever encountered.
It's definitely a paradigm shift.
We need to talk about the Metabo Law of 2008.
This is a critical piece of the puzzle, and it demonstrates how far the society is willing to go to enforce this default design.
So what is it?
The Metabo Law, short for metabolic syndrome, is a national health policy aimed specifically at preventing lifestyle diseases like diabetes and heart disease.
Okay, so how does it actually work?
Under this law, adults between the ages of 40 and 74 must undergo mandatory annual health checkups.
Okay, that seems fun.
But as part of that checkup, doctors take a mandatory waist circumference measurement.
Wait, let me make sure I'm hearing this right.
Go ahead.
The government mandates that doctors literally take a tape measure to your waistline every year.
Yes. The thresholds are strictly and legally defined by the Ministry of Health.
We hear what?
A maximum waistline of 85 centimeters for men and 90 centimeters for women.
If my boss in the United States or the U.S. government told me I had to submit to a mandatory waist measurement, there would be a massive HR lawsuit filed by noon.
Undoubtedly.
There would be protests in the streets. How did Japanese society agree to this? What happens if you fail?
Well, this is the most crucial mechanism of the law. The penalty for failing to meet these physical guidelines does not fall on the individual citizen.
It doesn't.
You don't get a fine in the mail if your waist is 86 centimeters. The penalty falls on your employer or your local government.
Wait, let me unpack this. If I work for a tech company in Tokyo and I go to my annual checkup and my waistline exceeds the legal limit, my boss gets in trouble.
Essentially, yes. Companies and local municipal governments are held legally and financially accountable for the overall health of their populations.
That is wild.
The government sets targets for reducing the rates of metabolic syndrome. If a certain percentage of a company's employee base exceeds the health thresholds, the company faces significant financial penalties.
Like fines.
Which usually come in the form of being forced to pay much higher financial contributions to the national elderly healthcare system.
That fundamentally shifts the responsibility in a way I've never seen.
It does.
Think about the Western perspective. In the U.S., if you gain weight, it is viewed almost exclusively as a personal moral failing.
It's all on the individual.
Right. It's your fault. You lack willpower. Go join a gym, go on a diet, figure it out yourself.
Yes.
But the Metabo Law proves that in Japan, obesity and lifestyle diseases are viewed as societal issues. They're corporate issues to be solved collectively.
Yes.
Your employer actively cares about your waistline because it directly hits their bottom line.
Exactly. It completely changes corporate behavior. It forces companies to be intensely proactive.
Because it's cheaper to keep you healthy than to pay the government fine.
Precisely. So companies invest in their employees. They subsidize healthier cafeteria food. They encourage employees to use the stairs.
They provide gym memberships.
Yes. And if you do fail the waist measurement, the company is required to provide you with mandatory dietary counseling and support.
Wow.
It is a massive systemic shift from treating sickness after it happens in a hospital to proactively preventing it from occurring in the workplace.
It's preventative maintenance on a societal scale. But as fascinated as I am by this, we have to look at this impartially.
We do.
We have to look at the entire picture. Because this level of societal involvement in an individual's body size, whether it's the government, your boss, or your community, has to be a double-edged sword.
It is.
Our sociological sources are very clear about the immense social pressure in Japan.
Yes, we must absolutely be objective about the consequences of this culture. The sources note that while the system works incredibly well on a macroeconomic level, the social reality can be harsh.
Right.
In Japan, there is a very real, very blunt social stigma regarding weight gain. It is highly normalized for peers, family members, or even casual acquaintances to openly and directly comment if someone has gained weight.
Right. And from what I read, the environment itself can be exclusionary.
How so?
Retail clothing stores often simply do not carry larger sizes. Navigating turnstiles, seating on public transit, or restaurant booths can be physically uncomfortable.
Yes.
Weight gain can mean an immediate, practical exclusion from normal societal flow.
And the public health data highlights the dark side of this relentless pressure.
The mental health aspect.
Yes. The National Health and Nutrition Survey data cited in our sources points out that this environment can lead to severe mental health struggles, body dysmorphia, and eating disorders.
That's awful.
Furthermore, it has resulted in a worryingly high rate of underweight young women.
Really?
According to the data, over 21% of Japanese women aged 20 to 29 are classified as clinically underweight, driven by an intense sociocultural desire to maintain an extremely slim figure.
It really is a trade-off. It's an imperfect system.
Very much so.
On one hand, it successfully solves one massive public health crisis, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and widespread obesity-related diseases that cripple Western healthcare systems.
Yes.
But it achieves that by creating collateral issues regarding extreme body image pressure. It is a trade-off that the society has, consciously or unconsciously, decided to make.
It is the cost of the default design.
Okay, we have taken this massive, deep journey through the mechanics of Japan's low obesity rate.
It's been a long journey.
We've explored the walkable pedestrian cities and the involuntary gymnasiums. We've looked at the supply chain mastery of the fresh konbinis.
Right.
We've uncovered the behavioral psychology of interruptive packaging, the biological hacks of Hara Hachibu, and the systemic corporate accountability of the Metabo Law.
We covered a lot of ground.
But now we have to bring this all back to you, the listener.
Exactly. The ultimate goal of understanding these systems is to see how they apply to our own lives.
The reality is, we can't all magically transport ourselves to Tokyo tomorrow.
Sadly.
We can't rely on hyper-efficient bullet trains to get us to work, and we certainly cannot force our local HR departments to start measuring our waists and paying for our dietary counseling.
No, we can't.
So the question becomes, how can you apply the principles of the Japanese model, this concept of accidental health, to a Western, largely car-centric, highly processed lifestyle?
This is where we transition from anthropological observation to personal application.
So how do we build this architecture of satiety in our own lives? Let's start with movement. How do we replicate the pedestrian mandate when we live in a sprawling suburb?
Right. If you have to drive to work, you have to drive.
You do.
But one highly actionable strategy from urban health experts is focusing on what they call the last mile.
The last mile. What is that?
You have to intentionally manufacture friction in your commute.
Manufacture the friction. Give me an example.
Instead of circling the grocery store parking lot for 5 minutes to fight for the spot closest to the automatic doors, intentionally park at the absolute furthest edge of the lot.
Okay.
If you drive to an office park, park near the entrance of the complex, not your building's front door.
Right.
If you take public transit in a Western city, force yourself to get off one stop early and walk the rest of the way.
So you are artificially creating that 2,000-step gap that Japanese citizens get by default.
Exactly. You are forcing that low-level cardiovascular interval training back into your daily routine. You make the movement an unavoidable part of the transit rather than a separate chore you have to do at a gym later.
I love that. Manufacture the friction of the last mile.
Yes.
Okay, what about inside the home? How do we replicate the microgastronomy and the packaging hacks?
We have to audit our vessels.
Audit our vessels.
The behavioral sources suggest a very simple, immediate change you can make in your kitchen today. Swap out your massive Western dinner plates.
The huge 12-inch platters.
Put them away. Use 7 or 8-inch plates instead. Use smaller, deeper bowls.
Because we eat with our eyes.
Right. A smaller plate loaded with a moderate portion looks like a massive feast to your visual cortex. A large plate with that same moderate portion looks like starvation.
By auditing your vessels, you trigger the psychological small plate effect, creating visual satiety without the massive caloric load.
Exactly. And when it comes to snacking, we need to artificially introduce interruptive snacking.
So stop buying the family-sized trough of chips or cookies, even if it's slightly cheaper per ounce.
Yes. The cost savings of the bulk bag are negated by the health costs of overconsumption.
Only buy individually wrapped snacks. Make yourself tear open a piece of plastic for every single bite. You are buying that necessary cognitive pause.
You are.
And to mimic the high-water content fullness of the Japanese diet, you can start your heavier meals with a low-calorie broth or a large glass of water to pre-fill the stomach and trigger those stretch receptors before the calorie-dense food arrives.
Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we must practice the 20-minute pause. We need to adopt Hara Hachibu intentionally.
So when you are eating dinner tonight, physically put your utensils down midway through the meal, wait 5 minutes, assess your actual hunger, not your mouth hunger.
And critically, change your default hydration. Swap out the sugary sodas and juices for unsweetened green tea, barley tea, or simply cold water. Change the baseline.
Auditing your environment. I think that is the absolute core takeaway from this entire deep dive.
I agree completely.
We spend so much of our time, our money, and our emotional energy trying to fix our willpower. We read diet books. We make rigid meal plans. We punish ourselves with guilt when we fail to resist a craving.
When really we should be fixing our surroundings. We need to make the environment do the heavy lifting for us.
It is a profound paradigm shift.
Yeah.
It's the shift from constantly fighting your own biology to actively designing a micro-environment where the healthy choice is simply the easiest, most convenient choice to make.
That's the secret.
Which brings us to our final thought for this deep dive. I want to leave you, the listener, with something to mull over as you go about your day today.
It's an important thought.
The very phrase accidental health implies that our environments are making choices for us every single day, constantly whispering instructions to our subconscious, whether we realize it or not.
Because if your environment is actively working against you, your willpower will eventually run out. It always does.
Exactly. So look around your home, look at the inside of your car, look at your office desk right now. Are your surroundings designed to make healthy choices the path of least resistance?
Or are you constantly fighting a steep uphill battle against your own space?
What is one physical speed bump you can add to a bad habit today? Maybe it's time to stop white-knuckling your way to health.
Maybe it's time to let your surroundings do the sweating for you, just like that expat leaking weight on the Nagano train commute.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, knowledge is most valuable when it's actually applied. Audit your space, add some speed bumps, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.